Hello, my little jellyfish. Today we're going to be making these felt envelopes. If you want to see it in vertical format in just 2 minutes, I have a YouTube short or it's over on my TikTok as well. If you want to see it horizontal, low res, stick around and we'll go through the whole process of making these felt envelopes. Alrighty, so the supplies you're going to need are some felt. I have 2 different colors because I would like to make 2 of them. I also have my felt scraps because I think I might use them when I make the envelopes. So you'll need felt. You'll also need some embroidery floss. It doesn't matter what color, whatever works for you. In addition to that, you're going to need a needle. I kind of have a nice big thick needle. This works best for me. I would say any size is okay as long as it is bigger than a traditional sewing needle. That's just going to be way too thin for the floss. You'll also need a pair of scissors, probably a ruler, a pencil, and a piece of paper. The first thing we're going to do is create a template for the envelope. So we're going to use our paper and our ruler to do that. Okay, so I think I want my envelope to be maybe about 4 inches tall. So I'm just going to mark that on one side. And because it's going to get folded, you're going to have to double that. So I'm marking 4 so I know where it folds, and then I'm going to mark 8 because 8 is double 4. And from there, I'm going to also mark it on the other side as well. Okay. And from there, the next step we're going to do is find the middle of the top portion. So after we've measured up 8, let's find the middle from this part up here. It's about 4 1/4. Okay, so this is my 8-inch mark, and this is my halfway mark from the top. So what I'm going to do now is draw a line from this middle point to my 8-inch section on both sides. Okay, so now it kind of looks like a really tall house. And what we're going to do is just cut these 2 triangles out, and we'll be left with our template. Before we move on, I think it's important information to have that I am just using a regular piece of printer paper. And because of that, I think the height on them is only about 11 inches. So I have the 4 inches height, which is 8 inches total on the paper, and that leaves about 3 inches for the flat part. And I think that if you're using just printer paper, I wouldn't do any higher than 4 inches because then your flap will be too short and it just won't look right. And at the end, when you're done, you won't have enough room to like actually close it. If you have maybe painter's paper, artist paper, or even just parchment where you can make it longer, then you can go ahead and do really as big as you want. But again, I would just recommend that your flap here is only 1 inch shorter than the height of the envelope you're going with. So my envelope height is 4 inches and my flap is about 3 inches. For the next step, we're going to get our felt out and place our template over the felt. It looks like my felt is just a smidge skinnier than the piece of paper, that's fine. I'm not going to worry about that too much. It's actually pretty helpful. So from here, what you're going to do then is just trace your template out over your felt. All right, and I don't think you can see it on the camera, but I can see the lines here. So I'm just going to cut out along my template lines. Okay, I have two pieces of felt shapes cut out here. I'm thinking of doing this one a little bit more Valentine's Day theme, and this one is going to be more general purpose. So the next step from here is to go ahead and pick out some embroidery floss that I think is going to go well with the colors here. When picking out your floss, it is important to have a lot. So I went ahead and tested this and I made a little mini one. And this took 5 feet of embroidery floss. This is much bigger. Let's see. So I think I'm going to I'll start with 10 feet and then I'll update it here. Editing Mindy here. So it only took me about 5 feet, the same amount. And I think it's because on these bigger ones, my spacing is much further apart than on the small one. I'll get into it in just a minute, but the small one is only a 1/4 inch apart, and these are a 1/2 inch apart. And I think because the spacing of the stitching is bigger, it took the same amount of thread. So it only took me about 5 feet of thread to do the 1/2 inch spacing, but if you do shorter spacing, smaller spacing, it might take you more thread. With how much I actually wound up using, but again, this was 5 feet, so I think you're going to need a substantial amount of the embroidery floss color that you pick. Before I move on to stitching up the sides, I want to add some embellishments onto the envelope, maybe like a little stamp in the corner or something on the front that says to so-and-so. Maybe I've got these little felt hearts that I might want to add onto the end here. So I'm going to go ahead and add those embellishments in now. So adding those in took way more time than I anticipated. And now that it's afternoon, you might start to hear airplanes in the background. Try to ignore them. So on to the next step. That's not an airplane. Now that that's calmed down, we are going to move on to the next step, which is sealing up the sides. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a blanket stitch on one of the flat side on the bottom corner here. I'm going to go all the way across the side. And then once I make it to the next corner, I'm going to fold it up. And then I'm going to blanket stitch the seams together. And I'm just going to follow that all the way through the side, the bottom, and the next side. So I did lie a little bit. What I'm going to do, instead of jumping right into doing the blanket stitch, I'm actually going to measure out where I want the next stitch to be. So on this little one, I did I did 1/4 inch for the next stitch. This one's a little bit bigger. I think a 1/4 inch might be a little small, so maybe I'll do half inch for the next stitches. Well, let's see, how far is this one? Yeah, I'll do a 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to go ahead and take this, a pen, and I'm going to mark out 1/2 inch along all the sides. Alrighty, I'm going to do my best to show you a blanket stitch. this is not going to be very good. If you need more in-depth details on how to do a blanket stitch, there's plenty of better how-to videos out there. I'm just going to try to show you for the purpose of this video, but it might not be that good. So what you do is you go, I've started it already, so I'm going to go in through my next spot, and I'm going to make sure I'm going into my next spot, and I'm going to make sure that when I pull it like through the other side, that it comes out in between the two threads that I have here. And I am working with 10 feet of thread, so it's probably going to get knotted. I don't have any best practices for keeping the thread clear. If any of you do, I would be happy to hear them. Okay. All right, so we're coming up on the end. And as you finish pulling it, you'll see how it's created that line across the top. So just one more time. I'm going to go in through my next spot, and then when I pull the needle, I want to make sure it's in between the two threads. So this is the end of our previous stitch, and I'm going into the front again. And when I'm pulling it through the back, I'm pulling it through in between the two. So this thread here is what's connected to the needle, and this is where we just came from. So it's in between the two. And there we go. So like I said, I'm going to do that to the whole bottom, and then I'll see you again when I reach the other end of the bottom here. So I have finished my stitching along the bottom here. And so the next step to do is to fold it up to the base of your flap. And then you're going to continue that blanket stitch along the side, the bottom, and the next side. So just while you're doing this next stitching, just make sure that the sides stay lined up, because as you're stitching, you might notice it start to separate a little bit. So just before you put in that next stitch, make sure it's just even and ready to go. As you can see, I have finished up the side, the bottom, and I'm on my last stitch on the last side here. So what I'm going to do to finish it off is put it through the initial stitch hole here. And then this next part is a little tricky. I'm going to take my needle, I'm going to go inside and then underneath this first stitch hole here, and I'm going to come out through the middle of this stitch that I just finished. And that should create a knot on the inside. So I can just snip this, and then we'll have our envelope ready to go. Okay, so at the base level, our envelope is done. We've completed it, and you can stick a little note in there, whatever you would like. I am going to go and add just a single stitch along the tops here, and I'm going to add on a heart to the back, so when it closes, there's like a little heart there. And I'm also going to add on just a small piece of Velcro so that way it can Velcro shut. And I will show you it totally completed in just a minute. I have completed the envelopes here. So I added on that heart on the back and some Velcro so it would stay shut. And this is the other one. I didn't put anything here, but I did add Velcro. And I just think these are so fun. Like this one is for Valentine's Day, but this one you can use for like a birthday or even the small ones, like if you have a kid, maybe for the tooth fairy or something. I just think it's a really fun way to have like a reusable envelope for different special occasions. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me today. Let me know down below if you decide to make your own or if you already have them, what you use them for. But this was so fun, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.